Good morning, sisters and brothers. Time for our Monday teaching in Galatians. I love to hear your feedback. Today we're looking at Galatians 2:15 and 16. Remember, Paul is confronting Peter to his face because he's not acting in accordance with the gospel. And he says to Peter, "We who are Jews by birth and not sinful Gentiles know that a person is not justified by the works of the law, but by faith in Jesus Christ. So we too have put our faith in Christ Jesus, that we may be justified by faith in Christ, and not by the works of the law. Because by the works of the law, no one will be justified." So Paul is telling the Galatians this because the false teachers keep telling them of the need to not only believe the gospel, but also to keep the law. So this is the doctrine called justification by faith. And the understanding of this led to a complete reformation of the church that took hundreds of years, and I have 5 minutes to share it with you. The passage we have to see only deals with justification, or how to be right with God. It does not deal with sanctification or how to be free from sin. That's the next chapter, chapter 3 and 4. Right now, we're just dealing with the foundation. How to be right with God. So the word justification, you probably know, is a legal term. And its opposite is condemnation. So it's either justification or condemnation. If you were to stand before a judge and you would receive condemnation, well, that would mean that you were found guilty. It would mean that you had to pay the price that he determined. Or if you were to receive justification, it would mean that you would not be held liable for anything, that you would be freely exonerated of all charges against you, and that you would be then released into freedom. So, what are the charges brought against you and I in God's heavenly courtroom? So it's way more than mere behavior. It's even more than having a bad heart. The charge against you and I is complete alienation from God, total depravity of our heart and mind. In other words, being dead in sin. Now, these charges against us, they're revealed in the law of God. And God himself, if you've noticed this in his word, God he testifies of our guilt. And he does that even more through our own conscience, through the sinful lives that we have lived. Now, we know of this righteous decree against us and of the guilt that is on us. And many of us have done things to try to be free from it, haven't we? We've tried to, be good. We've tried to read our Bible a lot. We've tried keeping God's law, doing good works. We've sought to be justified by our own effort. The problem is, we could never be good enough. We could never keep God's law perfectly. And so we're never free from the plaguing undertow of guilt that keeps drawing us back out into sin. But then one day, or maybe over time, we heard the message that God made his Son to be our sin and to remove our guilt. that on the cross, Jesus was alienated from his Father that we might be joined together with him. That Jesus was condemned instead of us, in our place, like Barabbas. Barabbas went free because Jesus died on his cross. And what was the only requirement on our part? To believe this message. We believed. We put our trust in the blood that Jesus shed. And we were justified. We were exonerated of all charges. We were set free from sin's penalty. Or as it says in Galatians, we too have put our faith in Christ Jesus, that we may be justified by faith in Christ. In other words, your rap sheet has been purged, wiped clean, and you have been found not guilty before a most holy God because of the sacrifice his Son made for you. I want to give you an illustration, and I just want to close with this illustration. Think about this, and then I'll ask you a question. So in the year 640 AD in China, there was an area of land owned by rich people. They had built luxurious homes. But right next to this one section of rich people was where poor people lived in mud huts. Okay, so you got it? The rich in this section, right next to them, the poor in mud huts. Now, in this year, 640 AD, the river Yangtze flooded, and the rich knew that their homes were a safe haven. And as the report came that the river was flooding, they all ran to the safety of their homes, and they went up as high as they could, went up on their roofs to wait it out. Well, the river was higher and stronger this year than it ever was before, and it literally destroyed every one of those rich people's homes. What they had trusted in and had built themselves was destroyed. The poor people, on the other hand, they knew that their mud huts would provide no protection, and they, as soon as they heard about the flood, they ran to the hills and they escaped the flood and lived. Question for this week to consider. In your own life, are you trusting in something you built? Your own efforts, your own life that you made, maybe the ministry that you do. You have something to offer God. Or do you see your life and your righteousness as nothing but a mud hut that could never withstand the flood of God's wrath? And you have run to the hill of Calvary and put your faith in what Jesus did for you. Let's talk about it. I look forward to hearing from you.